New day, new goals, let's own it. A new episode of Leaders Create Leaders. And we're getting ready to meet up with one of my mentors, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, period, Tom Bilyeu. He was the founder of Quest Nutrition, which became a billion-dollar company, one of Inc.'s fastest 50 companies, and now he's the founder of a new company called Impact Theory that's literally inspiring millions with his show, and he's building that company to be a whole new movement. But we're gonna get into not only how did he build this billion-dollar company, but what is his mindset? We're gonna get into the growth versus the fixed mindset, and then we're gonna get into some of the other tactics and habits that have made Tom Bilyeu one of the most world-renowned entrepreneurs of this generation. So let's get to it. None other Tom Bilyeu. You talked about the, wanting wealth growing up, and I've heard you mention that there was two things you wanted growing up, and it was wealth and abs. So tell me, you looked at film as one of those avenues, and so where did the abs come in?
It's interesting. So growing up in the 80s was when the martial arts were huge. So I really looked up to Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee said that the abs were the window to the soul, and so that really put that on my radar. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, like all those guys.
Van Damme.
Yeah.
Van Damme,
dude,
bro.
Van Damme was my jam.
What's your favorite Van Damme movie?
Ooh, well, so by the time that, what was it called? Time Cop came out?
Yeah.
Like I was pretty into that style of like Asian, because who was it that directed? Was it John Woo that did Time Cop? I think it might have been. It was somebody big, at least, in the sort of Asian kung fu thing, was doing like this mainstream Hollywood film, and it had Van Damme. So I fear if I went back and watched it now, I would hate it, but at the time, it was like my growing passion for like cinema met like my still sort of boyish love for Van Damme. So that movie's kind of been derided. Probably Bloodsport is my just objectively.
Dude, Bloodsport was so bomb. That was
I've seen that one so many times.
Movies of all time. Yeah. Like that scene when he does that split out in the middle of like a temple, and when that rope, when it was,
Are you talking about when the ropes pull him apart? That was Kickboxer.
Oh, Kickboxer. That was another one that was sick.
Where it's like,
I just feel like that style of like jiu-jitsu, did you get into martial arts or did you think about that at all? Because that kind of a lot plays into mindset and like discipline and energy. Is that something that you...
Well, I'll tell you, so yes, very much. So I had all the karate books as a kid. I watched all the ninja movies. And the person that I fell most for was Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
And I love his movies still to this day in a way that you can't imagine, the way that he uses people's energy against them, where he would make himself, like one of my favorite scenes, I think it's in Hard to Kill, where he's in the convenience store and he gets on his knees and he tells the guy, come on, cut my heart out. And then he just like totally fucks the guy up. So that, I was just absolutely obsessed with it, because it was a guy who could put himself in the most demeaning position and still rise up because he had that level of confidence in himself. And being able to do that, like seeing somebody like that was intoxicating for me. So he studied Aikido, and so I became obsessed with Aikido. And when I went to college, I got into Aikido, and I was like, this is it, dude. Like all this time as a kid, all these movies, it's all culminating towards this. I'm gonna crush it, I'm gonna be that guy, it's gonna be badass. And then I got into it, I got my ass handed to me, and because I had a fixed mindset, I quit. And so you take all this like beautiful, powerful movie mythology. The thing that my dad and I bonded over was Steven Seagal films. Like it was so steeped. You would think that right now I would be like a black belt in Aikido, but a fixed mindset stopped me. And that's actually I have not thought about this in a very long time, so thank you for asking me something that I don't routinely think about. But that story, to understand me, that story is important, because I did not come from a position of power. I'm somebody who built himself from a position of lacking self-belief, of being afraid, being mentally and emotionally weak, and building myself up from that. And do you know Jocko Willink?
I do not.
All right, so Jocko Willink wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. He's a Navy SEAL, an incredible, one of the most just admirable human beings on the planet. He is a man's man. He is tough beyond like all recognition. He would hate me saying all this, by the way. I had a chance to interview him. And in the interview, I was telling him a story about how when I was in my early 20s, there was this period I was living in London. London's very cold. And so I'd wake up in the morning and I would lay in bed for 2 or 3 hours because I didn't want to get out of the warm sheets. And he goes, "Don't worry, Tom, we'll let you edit that out." And I said, "Jocko, I don't want to edit that out. I want people to understand that just because you start weak does not mean you have to stay weak."
Yes.
And so one thing I really want people to hear in my story is I did not show early signs of promise. My own mother, always my biggest cheerleader, but my own mother quietly assumed that I was going to fail when I went away to college, but I didn't fail. And so how did I start weak? How did I have sort of all the weaknesses, petty emotions, beliefs that were holding me back, and ultimately flip it to go on to build the second fastest growing company, valued at over $1 billion, make myself fantastically wealthy? Like, how did I do that? Because I didn't do it by staying weak.
Yes.
And the thing that frustrates me is when people see someone at the pinnacle of their game and they say, "Oh, they must be naturally talented."
What's interesting is just like Tom growing up, I was very similar. In fact, my uncle raised me to learn jiu-jitsu. So I can relate to being a fan of Van Damme, Steven Seagal. But what's really interesting to me is how Tom, when he was growing up, was really an introvert. He lacked confidence, and he had to figure out how to break through that through these small wins. And he has a concept called the anti-fragile concept that we're gonna get into. And I think that there's one thing I know about Tom is he has so many amazing tactics for you to have those breakthroughs and get that mindset right so you can step into your gift and step into becoming a successful entrepreneur.
So these guys end up coming across my path, who would later become my partners in Quest Nutrition. And they found me when I was teaching film, and they were the ones that told me, "Hey, you're coming to the world with your hand out. And if you're ever gonna control your art, you have to control the resources." And so here they were, very successful, and they had six-pack abs. So I was like, all right, these guys literally are living like the two things that I promised myself that I would have one day. So I'm gonna follow these guys and figure it out. And so they said, "Look, we're starting this company, we need a copywriter. But don't think of yourself as a copywriter. You can have any position in the company you want, you just have to become the right person for the job." And so I was like, whoa, like that, I'd never heard anything like that before. I said, I've got to give this a shot. So I left my job teaching film, and I went to work with them as a copywriter, and I started thinking about like acquiring skills and getting better and how do I improve. And I had always prided myself on being the king of remedial jobs. And the reason that I did that was I would be the smartest person in the room. So I would only interview for jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than the person doing the interviewing. I only took jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than my manager. And that made me feel really good about myself. And it was like the classic, like, "Oh, my boss is an idiot. No, I'm so smart. And why don't they promote me?" And so you sort of get in this weird loop of like complaining about the world, but there's like a certain intoxication to being smug and being like, I know better, right? Yeah. So working with these guys, like they were both smarter than me, a lot smarter. Wow. And so all of a sudden, like, I wasn't the king of remedial jobs. I wasn't a big fish in a little pond. I was a little fish in a huge pond. And so now I was like, this does not feel good. And this was not some beautiful moment where in the like movie, it's like, and he does well. Like I started having real moments of crisis where it was like, okay, being around these guys actually sucks. And I don't like feeling stupid all the time. And I remember one time arguing for something that I knew was wrong, it was bad for the business, but I was so tired of losing and feeling stupid that I just kept going until I actually convinced them. And then I thought, oh dear God, I've convinced them of something that I know is bad for the business. Like, what am I doing? So at the time, my stated goal was I'm gonna get wealthy. So if that's really my goal, and I just convinced them to do something that I know moves me away from that, what do I actually want? Because I'm acting like I want to feel good about myself. I'm not acting like I actually want to get wealthy.
Right.
So if my true motives are I want to feel good about myself at all times, get out of the situation with these two guys who make you feel stupid, go back to being the king of remedial jobs, feel good about yourself, and then just be honest, right? So, or stop feeling good about yourself, double down, do whatever you have to get wealthy. And those both sounded horrible. And then luckily I had an insight, which was there's a third option, which is I need to feel good about myself, but what if I changed what I built my self-esteem around? Because right now I'm building my self-esteem around being right, I'm building my self-esteem around being smart,
Yes.
and those aren't moving me towards my goals, at least not all the time. So what could I switch it to that's truly anti-fragile, to use Nassim Taleb's words? And the idea of something that's resilient or hardcore, whatever word you want to use, like those are still defined by their breaking point, right? Something that's resilient, it breaks, it just breaks a lot farther away than most things. Something that's truly anti-fragile is something that grows stronger the more it's attacked.
Right.
And so I thought, what would be something that would actually be stronger the more it got attacked? And the answer ended up being to switch my self-esteem from being right to identifying the right answer and becoming the energy behind that answer faster than anybody else. So I could actually feel good about myself by admitting that I was wrong. Because I literally decided, you're going to be the learner. And I started repeating that. I'm not the smartest guy, I'm the learner, I'm the learner, I'm the learner. Don't pride yourself on being smart. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. In fact, feel good about yourself when you admit that you were wrong.
Right.
I literally saying these words in my head.
Wow. And is this something that you trained yourself to like, going through that crisis, asking yourself these questions? Is this something, did you read anything? Did anybody guide you? Do you have any mentorship? Or?
Mostly brilliant people writing books and me reading those books and having the sense to open myself to be changed by them. And I think a lot of people read a book, but they don't go, I'm now going to act differently. I'm going to act in accordance with what I just read.
Fear change.
Yeah, for sure. And so I embraced it and thought, if I'm going to spend the time reading it, then I should really let these things change me. It was my business partners who, you want to talk about, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like now being around entrepreneurs who, the reason I think being an entrepreneur is so powerful is the market tells you in black and white, stone cold, whether what you're doing is right or wrong, period.
Right.
And if you're profitable, you're doing things right. And if you're not profitable, you're doing things wrong. I mean, it's that simple. And you go out of business or you stay in business and you thrive. Like that clarity, it forces entrepreneurs to think in a certain way and to act in a certain way and to really be results oriented. So being in that environment, having fallen in love with reading, opening myself up to being changed, and then some insights of my own. But it all comes together into this moment where if you're willing to look at the things in your life and really look at your inadequacies.
And I want the audience to really hear this. For the people out there that don't know what they're not sure about what they really truly want. They're confused about what they truly really want. They're not getting the results in their life. What would you say to them right now to help them to figure out what is it that they truly want in life, and to understand that they have to take ownership. They have to make that choice. No matter how many people they look at on Instagram, how many books they can read, they need to implement that into their life. And you went through it, and look where you are now, which is like, it's proof that you can do it, but it starts with the individual. What would you say to those that are watching that are stuck in that same situation that you were back then? And was this in your early 20s? Was this in your, how old were you?
Yeah, this is mid-20s. I'm probably
Mid-20s?
like 25, 26 at this point.
Okay.
Well, you put your finger on the most important thing, which is you have to take responsibility. And one thing that you just hear over and over and over and over from entrepreneurs is everything is my fault. Everything's my fault, right? And the reason that entrepreneurs do that is whether it's true or not, it keeps you in control. It puts you in a power position, and it forces you to ask the question, what could I be doing differently? So if this is a result that I'm getting with my current thoughts, behaviors, actions, what results could I get if I change them? And by maintaining that power, by never being a victim, by never giving your authority and power over to somebody else and saying that they have control over me, or it's circumstances, it's the neighborhood I grew up in, or the economy, or whatever, by always saying this is my fault, and what can I do to change it, you'll be able to do the things you need to do to achieve the goals that you want, because you look at an obstacle as something that can be overcome, go around, go under, go through it, whatever the case, but it's my responsibility. And I just cannot overstate that. Like, that was just a paradigm shift for me, to never look for somebody else to blame. And the only reason people don't blame themselves is it hurts from an ego standpoint, because they have built their ego around something that is not anti-fragile. And so because it's fragile, they need external validation for who they are. They're not focusing on things that they can control entirely, being a learner, moving fast on a good idea, right? They're building it around being right, being smart, being good enough. Like, I'll just tell you right now, I'm not good enough. The market has told me I'm not good enough, right? So I firmly believe that whatever skill set you have, it has already taken you as far as it's going to take you. So today, your life is the summation of your choices, is an exact reflection of the skills that you have. So this is it. And if you're happy with this, great. But if you want more, which I do, I'm the king of goalpost moving, right? So like, you couldn't have told me as a kid that I'd be as wealthy as I am today, have succeeded the way that I've succeeded, and still feel hopelessly inadequate. But I do that because I'm always moving the goalpost. But remember, I don't value myself on being adequate. I value myself on being willing to look at my inadequacies.
And learn.
Right, exactly. So I'm almost arrogant because I'm like, oh, I'm willing to face that. I'm willing to face that I suck at that. And because I'm willing to do that, I can get that skill, I can get good. So like our stated thing at Impact Theory, we're gonna be bigger than Disney on a similar timeline, right? Who's got the arrogance to say that? To me, that's the arrogance of belief, not in who you are, but in the price you're willing to pay to become somebody.
I love that.
Okay? So I have the arrogance of belief in who I'm willing to become. Now, to me, that's just a process, right? It's just a matter of going, okay, to be Disney, to create that studio, I need to have these skills. This is where I am today. This is my gap in skill set. So I'm just going to start acquiring these skills, right? So I do that. I tell people what I'm doing, which is intoxicating for other people. They love to follow somebody that has the arrogance of belief. That's like, belief is one of those things people will get behind.
At the end of the day, if you are truly doing something that you love and that fulfills you, then you'll go through the pain, you'll go through the struggle, you'll go through the adversity. It's like Mother Teresa, how she withstood poverty to help people because it made her feel amazing. Or the fact that I love this show so much that I'm in the -4-degree weather. But at the end of the day, you can get through and fight through any adversity in your life if you have gratitude and you realize that you're doing something that makes you happy, that you love.
Setting goals is critical. You have to have clarity. You need to know exactly what you're going for because everything's going to be reverse engineered from that. People are going to tell you to follow your passion, and I love that, and it's very, very true, but there's this huge gap between that, which is how do I find my passion? And I think there's like a cultural belief that a passion is like some lightning rod thing you've had since you were a kid. I don't think it works like that. Yeah. So I think passion it's a simple process again. So it starts with overlapping areas of interest. So find areas where things come together. So for me, I'll give you the real example that's led to Impact Theory. So I love helping people. Okay, I'm wired for that shit.
Yeah,
so for me to like, and I know you do, I mean, your life's such a reflection of it, to see that moment of awakening where somebody realizes they can do more and be more, they're gonna have to work for it, but that just believing that they can do more and be more will force them down a path that will allow them to acquire the skills and then actually do it. So just seeing that moment is so awesome. Like I could just get emails all day and truly be a fulfilled human being. Tom, something you said made me realize I could do something more, and then they go off and do it. Yeah. It's just incredible. And then the other is art. I love filmmaking, art in its most commercial form, because to me commercial just means it reaches a broad audience, it resonates with a broad audience. So I love comic books, I love movies, I love TV shows, I love video games, okay? So help people, and then my love of those 5 forms of art. Now what happens to sit in the middle of that? I know that the way for humans to assimilate truly disruptive information is through narrative. Okay, that's interesting. So if I want to help people by disrupting the way that they think, and they get to use those 5 things that I really care about, now you have Impact Theory sitting right in the middle, okay? Now the key to turning something from overlapping areas of interest to a true life-affirming passion is the gaining of mastery. So you have to set yourself on a path to gain skills to find out whether, like, do I actually want to execute against being a filmmaker, being a producer of comic books, because there is a universe of logistics to distributing and producing comic books that maybe I'll hate. And then I have to rethink it, right? Or, God, you know what, building communities, man, people being like, writing me at all hours, like the haters, when I say something that they don't like, trying to tear me down, like, God, do I really want to deal with that? Maybe I don't. And then you have to pivot. But you'll never know that until you start trying to gain mastery and get good and get deep enough into it that you really see and understand that world. Yes. And so the only thing people have to watch out for is the eternal pivot, because no matter what, to create Impact Theory, just to use my example, there will be an unending, a dizzying amount, a blinding, a paralyzing amount of boring shit.
Yes. Okay?
And that's what people don't realize. I love that entrepreneurs are becoming the new rock stars. I love that you can have millions of followers.
Yes.
As a fucking entrepreneur, like that's crazy and wonderful, because it's going to get people thinking about something than just creating art, right? Being a musician, yes. Being an actor. But the flip side of that is people think that it's just glamour, and it's not, right? Most of building a business is boring. It's the finances, it's taxes, it's employees, it's contracts, it's dealing with all the weird stuff that comes along with human beings, the governmental agencies, regulations. It's unending. So you've got to see where it goes, what your business is meant to bring into the world, and say, I am so on fire about that not not only will I acquire the skills that I currently lack, but I will fight through all the boring shit because I believe in it. So I always tell people, find something that you would die for and live for it.
So I hope you guys love this episode. Tom Bilyeu, by far, is one of my favorite entrepreneurs ever. I'm so grateful that he's been a mentor to me. I hope you guys learned a lot about his mindset and how he's going from someone who lacked confidence to being someone who's been able to build $1 billion company. His company, Impact Theory, now is a huge movement inspiring millions and millions of people. So make sure to check out Impact Theory. Comment what you love most about Tom in this episode. I appreciate you guys being a part of the community. And I'm excited because we now have some new LCL merch. So if you guys want to cop that, make sure you go to the link below. Also, if you guys want to see the full-length interview of Tom, this is one of the smartest entrepreneurs I've ever been able to sit down with. Make sure to become a founder and check it out on the inside. Thanks to Tom. See you guys later. Peace. It's cold.